Hello again, I'm Anna Delman. It is day number 86, and my note for instruction to myself for today is boundaries. Ruling someone out. Now that sounds kind of vicious or nasty, I know. However, sometimes in life we need those boundaries. Yesterday my note of encouragement was, I am a no manipulation zone. I haven't always been that way. It was something I had to learn in life, that I didn't need to please everyone, and I needed to consider everyone in a scenario who was trying to manipulate me and the reasons why they were doing it, and most importantly, the reasons why I needed to grow and not allow others to manipulate me and not be manipulatable. So on the back of being a no manipulation zone, we need to consider establishing boundaries in our lives so that we can be at peace, we can remain in confidence, and we can remain steadfast in moving forward in our life and managing our lives well. Now, to establish boundaries, it calls for a standard. What standard is being encroached on or being compromised in your life that you need to draw a line in the sand? You know, invariably, it has something to do, most importantly, in the foundation of who we are individually as people. It's a faith issue. What is somebody doing which is a threat to my faith, and not even a threat, but disrespecting? Is that important enough to me that I will draw a boundary and say, you're welcome to be my friend, you're welcome to be in my company, I respect your position, kindly respect mine, I'm not going to denigrate what you believe in, kindly don't do the same to me. No snide remarks, no cattiness, no nastiness. And if they are willing to have that as the boundary, the foundation for your friendship, then it can continue. However, if they are nasty and refuse, then it's an opportunity for you to value what you believe in to the extent that you can say, until you're able to change how you view me and what I believe in, this is the boundary, and my friendship with you will need to cease. Now that is something to do with faith, and friendship crosses over into that. There are very many other areas in our friend perspectives that we need to consider what are the boundaries and what is not. Before you make something a hill to die on, really evaluate deeply what is important to you. What is the reason for the boundary? If the reason is something petty, like somebody didn't like your haircut, or they don't like something about you, or they don't like looking at me, because here it is. It's the end of a fever blister, a canker sore, whatever they are called. It's almost done, but for a week, 10 days, I had either a red lip or a scabbing lip, and that's not pleasant. If somebody doesn't want to be in my company because they don't like looking at things like that, well, that's a petty reason, right? And those kind of people, we just don't yoke with them very closely. They're kind of peripheral friends anyway. That's a silly example, but I'm showing you pettiness is not what we should have as a hill to die on. When we are making boundaries, there should always be a way that can be overcome in time for unity to be restored. Unity should always be our goal. Being at peace with all people should always be our goal. We should always be examining ourselves to see if we considered something correctly. It might even be years later. When you look back at a situation, did you respond to it correctly way back then? Have you had more knowledge come to you and your opinion of it has changed because you've grown, or is your opinion still the same? It doesn't mean because your opinion is still the same that the problem's with you. You may through time have had the opportunity to reaffirm your position that you were right then, you've been right all along, and you're still right today, and therefore the boundary remains. Simple as that, right? when we are considering the boundaries, we need to look at it from both perspectives. We need to understand the other person's perspective, and that doesn't mean in looking to understand it that we are not going to draw a boundary line. We're still going to, but we need to weigh both perspectives in it to be fair and just and to be gracious. I think so. Always, as I've said, there needs to be a possibility of them changing, you changing, if it's a position that you are able to change through learning little things that occurred in the background that you weren't aware of. Always be open to that, because division, boundaries, is a huge, big thing. We hope always for it to be a season and not permanent, but sometimes divisions in relationships end up being permanent. Always boundary structuring should be done with a huge, big caution. We need to be flexible, as I've already said in our discussions, and when those discussions aren't going right, we need to be firm in the constructing of the boundary, in the lining up of what we want to hold true to in the distancing from another person. Our boundaries always should be justified and must always be positioned in grace. Now, I'm specifically mentioning the word grace because grace is kindness, grace is fairness, grace is honesty, and grace is all structured on wisdom and the foundation of what the platform is of why you reason through life the way you do. And that all comes down to a cornerstone which holds all your philosophy together and all your understanding of life together. Now, if you're not able to honor that in your foundation, in your the boundary you're building, if that cornerstone, that foundation of which you structure your life on, is not in a place to be honored by the action you are taking, then it is wrong. I did say we always need to structure it with grace. We always need to have the patience with others that they may come to a point where they change their perspective. Now, they may come to you with a facade of change. They may say, well, I was so sorry that this is what happened. Let's call old things and move on. Sometimes that can be done. However, often in life, the reality is that so much damage was done to you or to a society. But in this instance, I want to focus primarily on you. If a great damage has been done and they may want to admit that they dealt with things unfairly, you've forgiven them. It's not that you haven't forgiven them. However, even if they come to you, that boundary may need to stay in place for a season of time until the evidence of their correction is observed by you. So they need to start on their side, building a little foundation, building the pathway, smoothing the playing field, and that's by making the corrections as widely as they built the negativity or laid the platform of, or the pathway of negativity. They now need to come and till it, smooth it over, and that is done with a lot of humility. However, should they do that publicly, and they do that work publicly, you can meet them on the pathway to reconciliation. However, when boundaries are broken down, it doesn't always mean reconciliation as being strongly united. It can be a respectful acknowledgement, and you leave it at that. Often that's the best recourse. Just some kind of division remains, however there is respect just between. But once again, consider your boundaries carefully, build them with grace, and hope for the best. Until tomorrow, take care. Bye-bye for now.